So yes, welcome to Living Beyond Limits and our service in the park. And if you're joining us online, we welcome you. I am Reverend Jennifer Spear, and we are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living. And I'm so glad that we are here together to celebrate life. And so, as we begin our service, I'm going to share with you our mission statement. And so it goes like this. And if you know it, I invite you to say it with me. And if you don't, I invite you just to take it in. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, we give way to the evolutionary impulse of the divine and become a beneficial presence in the world. And so that's exactly what we are doing here at Living Beyond Limits, as we are showing up so that this service and all the words that are said and the songs that are sung and the things that we hear and do help us remember that divine nature that lives within us, that divine presence that is a presence of power and wholeness and peace and love. Because what happens when we come to discover that those qualities of spirit are innate to our own beingness, that then we have access to them when the world is not reflecting that back to us. And so as we embrace the idea of that and begin to embody the truth that those qualities are always there, we become a beneficial presence in the world. We become beneficial in our interactions with each other when we bring love into a situation where love has not been active, or when we bring peace into a situation that is not peaceful. We become a beneficial presence in the world as well as in that particular conversation. And so I say thank you to each and every one of you for answering the call of your own spirit to be walking this path, to be bringing that divine presence into this world in a way that benefits you and that benefits all of us. So thank you for that. Can you all hear me okay?
I think you have to turn that up.
It sounds quiet to me.
It's quiet.
How's that? Is that any better? Does it need to go up still more?
Yeah, a little more.
There's one that says mic volume. Maybe the mic volume needs to go up. How's that? Is that any better? That's better? Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite our practitioner, Barbara Conant, up now. She's going to lead us in an evocation and do a contemplative reading for us. And so I invite you just to begin to kind of settle into yourself, to let go of the busyness of your life and all that's going on in the world, and to just allow yourself to become present in this moment, in your body, and to just kind of let go. And so I will ring the bell, and then we will hear the song We Are that you are invited to sing along if you know the words, or to just let that take you a little bit deeper.
My thoughts within and recognize we are all one in light and love with spirit. It surrounds me. It fills my heart to overflowing with its beauty and creations. Everywhere I look, I see the divine, its glory manifesting in its many, many ways. I open my heart to peace and the all good. I know I am a point of light within the Creator's mind. what I think sets in motion the intelligence of infinite mind. And it opens my expression to the many qualities of God, like love, peace, light, and I experience and I expect a life filled with good. How grateful I am to know the creative mind is always right where I am, and this is a truth for all people. I am blessed today to be here with the congregation of Living Beyond Limits as we come together to celebrate the light and love within each other. I bless everyone here and on YouTube. I bless Reverend Jennifer, her talk, which opens our minds and hearts to new ideas to live a creative and fulfilling life. I bless all people everywhere, knowing that God is right where they are. And in gratitude, I say, and so it is. Good morning, everyone. My reading today is from 365 Days of Richer Living by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker. And it's entitled, I am surrounded and upheld by Almighty God, and my soul is filled with peace. And it begins, God is where I am, and in this presence I am secure. I am sustained by the mind of God, and I live fearlessly, joyously, and freely. Nothing can stop the right action of God in my life. At every instant, God acts, and I know this action is around me, within me, and upon me. There is nothing to fear. There is only God to know. The power of Spirit is my protection from all that is unlike God. This power is working for me and is working through me. It makes my way easy and my burden light. It goes before me and eliminates every obstacle that would confound me. I am surrounded by God, and my soul is filled with peace. God is all there is, and there is nothing to believe except this eternal goodness. I do not believe in sickness, lack, or unhappiness. I know there is no power, no authority, and no continuity of negativity. My world, being the presence of God, is aware of truth and beauty. All other does not exist. Regardless of circumstance, I keep my mind free of worry and doubt, for I know that Spirit is the only cause and love is the only effect. I have complete faith in God and its law of right action. Radiant with love, no one can hurt me. Inspired by divine intelligence, nothing can confuse me. Filled with perfect peace, nothing can disturb me. I meet life this day with ease and the expectancy of increased blessings. And so it is.
And so my talk today is the third in a series, really, about how to maintain... You can't hear me, huh?
We can hear you,
How's that? Is that better?
I think so.
Do you want it louder than that? Louder than that? How's that? Is that better? And tell me again if you want it to go louder than that. Okay, so today's talk is the third in a series that is really about how to maintain a sense of well-being when the world is tumultuous and feels really uncertain. Not just when the world is tumultuous, but even when your own life is tumultuous and things feel uncertain as well. Because certainly when I started this series 3 weeks ago, there were a lot of troubles happening in the world, and certainly those things are still happening right now. That we are still in the middle of a worldwide pandemic that in this country has become very politicized, and the fires are still burning in Northern California. And we still have the aftermath of the earthquake that happened in Haiti, and climate change is still an issue. And then there's Afghanistan, which has just seemingly really gotten out of control, as well as whatever it is that you have going on in your own life that causes you stress. And so all of those things have the potential to cause us stress. They have the potential to create worry and angst and fear inside of us. And together, all of those things happening at the same time really have the ability to leave us feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and anxious and maybe even a little bit depressed. And then, in addition to all those things happening in the world, we are actually immersed in, swimming in this pool of collective consciousness, which is collective thought and collective feeling. So we are being exposed to all of that feeling in humanity that's going on, and the emotions that are going on of humanity affects us whether we're actually aware of it or not. And so 2 weeks ago, I talked about that when we feel stressed out, that our thinking becomes less expansive, that our thinking becomes less creative and less open to higher ideas and higher thoughts, and that smaller thinking, constricted thinking, can actually cause us to have a lack of faith. It can cause us to have a lack of faith that there are solutions to the problems. It can cause us to have a lack of faith that things will somehow work out. It can cause us to have a lack of faith that we can handle whatever it is that happens. And it can also cause us to not see, because our thinking is smaller, to not see or remember that there is an infinite intelligence that is right in the midst of everything that is happening in this world and everything that is happening in our own lives. And so 2 weeks ago, I talked about when we feel stressed, that it's how important it is to take good care of ourselves. And we talked about doing things that create the relaxation response within our bodies. And we talked about also committing to being the source of our own well-being. To not have it need to be out in the world, but to commit to being our own source of well-being and to do things that create that sense of well-being. And then last week, I talked about lifting our vision to see beyond the problems, to actually recognize that whatever those things that are going on are facts. They're happening, but they're not the spiritual truth. They're not the spiritual truth, recognizing things like, yes, there is a presence of intelligence right here. That infinite presence is a creative intelligence, and that creativity is in the midst of every single person that is involved in any of those situations. It causes us, sometimes we need to look beyond the problem so that we can see that that presence is not limited in any way, but instead that it is a limitless intelligence. It is limitless and infinite creativity, and it is present and it is active here and now in every single moment. when we are able to lift our thoughts to look above and beyond what's happening, it helps us to have faith. It's important that we have faith and acknowledgement, because when we have faith and acknowledgement of that infinite presence, it creates an opening within us for that presence to take form in this world. And so the title of my talk today is Don't Get Caught. And I'm talking about that in order to not get caught up in the fear and the worry and maybe even a sense of despair, we must shift our focus. That when we shift our focus, it shifts our feelings and it shifts our mood, which in turn then shifts our experience. So I'm talking specifically about 3 things that we can do to stay centered. 3 things that we can do that will give us the ability to bring ourselves out of worry and fear and despair, and instead to have faith in life. So is there anyone here that would like to be able to stay centered amongst the things that are going on in the world? Anyone here that would like to be able to lift themselves out of worry and fear and despair? Yeah, I have the right group. I thought that might be the case. And so this week I've been reading a book called Up the Mood Elevator by Larry Sen. And one of the techniques that he talks about in his book is a technique that helps shift our thinking so that in turn we can shift our feeling and our mood, hence Up the Mood Elevator. And so he calls this technique pattern interrupt. And it's a simple way to let go of a particular train of thought and shift to another train of thought. And so if we're going to practice that technique, it begins with mindfulness. And that means to notice when your mood starts dropping. To notice when your mood has dropped and you start feeling irritated or anxious or insecure or worried or depressed or any of those lower emotions that we have. It takes mindfulness, first of all, to recognize that is where you are and that is where your thinking is going. To remember that our thinking creates our feelings. Our thinking creates our emotions. James Allen, who was a British philosophical writer, wrote the book in 1902, As a Man Thinketh, said, "Every action and feeling is preceded by a thought." Every single feeling we have is preceded by some thought that we're having. And so we begin by remembering that our thinking creates our feelings and our emotions. And so this technique, pattern interrupt, is something that we purposely do to interrupt our current pattern of thinking. And so, for example, let's say that you have a concern about something that happened or something that you did earlier in the day, or even earlier in the week for that matter, and you're obsessing about it. Do you ever do that? And then your phone rings, and it's one of your really good friends on the phone. And she tells you that she finally got tickets to go to that event that you've been wanting to go to forever. And now you finally get to go. And you start talking about how fun it's going to be and what it's going to be like and what you're going to do. And do you notice your mood has shifted? Almost immediately, your feelings and your emotions and your mood shift because your thinking has shifted. You've gotten out of that negative pattern of thinking that you were stuck in, and you're thinking about something else. Because your mood shifted, because your thoughts have shifted. And so there are many things that we can do to shift our thinking. And one of them is to exercise. To exercise or to go for a walk, and particularly to go for a walk in nature. You can spend time with friends or spend time with people who are up, people who are optimistic or have a positive attitude. You can listen to music. You can read a really good book. You can pray or meditate or even take a shower. All of those things will shift your thinking and in turn shift your emotional experience and your feelings. And so last week I had a couple of days being grumpy and feeling really overwhelmed. And so one night I was home by myself and decided in order to shift my mood, I was going to listen to music. So I turned Pandora on and put on the station of Simon and Garfunkel. And if you don't know Pandora, what it is if I put in Simon and Garfunkel, it's going to play all sorts of music that is similar in genre to that. And so I'm sitting in my recliner chair and I'm listening to music and I'm singing along, and I really don't know the words, a lot of the words to the song. So I decided on my phone to look up the lyrics to each one of the songs as it came on. So I'm singing along with each one of the songs, and I had such a good time. I did it for like an hour. And by the time I was done, I was in such a good mood. I shifted my thinking from worrying about the stuff that's going on in the world and fretting just to something different. That is that perspective shift, that pattern shift. I've also in the last couple weeks gone to the beach 3 different times. Go to Dog Beach and watch the dogs running on the beach. We've gone and had dinner on the sand at Marine Stadium. And just sitting at the water and watching the sunset shifts my perspective to the beauty and how beautiful this is. And it shifts my inner experience, my emotional experience, to one of gratitude and one of awe. It shifts me out of that other thinking. And so I have a question for you. What can you do in your own life to shift your thinking? Think of a few things right now that you can do to shift your thinking. Think of 3 things that you can do. I want you to have some things in your back pocket that when you find yourself feeling depressed or anxious or worried that you can do. And then the second thing that we can do when we notice that our feelings are down somewhere low or that we're feeling stuck is to focus on a higher purpose. To focus on some cause that speaks to your heart. It doesn't have to be anything big. It just needs to be bigger than you are, and it needs to be something that is beneficial, something that makes a difference. It could be listening to a friend. It could be being encouraging to someone. Think about how you feel after being encouraging to someone. It could be contributing time or money to a cause that is important to you. Pat Scott right now is sewing bears, designing and sewing bears that she's giving to a hospice. Anything where you feel like you are somehow contributing and making a difference. Helping someone who needs assistance. It could be paying for someone's meal in a restaurant and then leaving before they know who paid for it. It could also be living from your own spiritual principles. Living from those things that are important to you on your spiritual path. That might mean that it could look like being loving or kind to a person who did not do anything to deserve your kindness or your love. It could be something that you're doing that is practicing unity and oneness and inclusion. What happens is when we do any of those kinds of things, it shifts our thinking from this one thing we're focused on to realizing that there is such a bigger picture to our life. There is such a bigger picture to life itself, and we feel that when we're doing something with a purpose, when we're doing something where we're living from our spirit. Shifting our focus by coming from our spirit or coming from our spiritual beingness lifts our mood and expands our viewpoint. It expands our viewpoint to see that there is more to life than this problem we are focused on. Do you see that? Do you get that? And the third and last thing that is probably the most important thing is actually, in order to shift your mood, your feelings, your perspective, is to starve your fear and to feed your faith. And I think we all know that story about the Native American grandfather who is telling his grandson the story and teaching him, and tells him that there are two wolves inside of him and that they are fighting this brutal fight, a fight to the death. And one of them is a wolf that is evil. It is a wolf that is of anger and hatred and fear and worry and angst. And the other wolf that is fighting is a wolf of good. It is a wolf of benevolence and kindness and peace and love and faith. And so the grandson thinks about it and says, well, which one will win? And you all know the grandfather says the one that will win is the one that I feed. And so we must feed our faith and starve our fear. So that means we must pay attention to our self-talk. He tells a story, actually, the quote out of the Mood Elevator Larry sends says, worry is a great example of how we feed our negative thoughts. Legitimate concerns can be useful in prompting us to be aware, take action, or create a contingency plan. In contrast, they can also start us on a long and productive journey of the imagination. And so he tells a story about a woman, Deborah, that he has worked with. And they tell her that the CEO of their company is going to accompany her on one of her sales calls. And she starts worrying. Oh my gosh, I must not be doing this right. Oh my gosh, he's going to criticize me and see that I'm not very good at this. And she starts worrying. And as the days go on before this happens, she finally tells herself and convinces herself she's going to get fired. She's going to get fired, and then her son's not going to be able to go to college, and then they're going to lose their house. When in actuality, none of that is true. The CEO wanted to accompany her on a sales call so that he could have a better understanding of what goes on out in the field. Do you ever do that? So, do your concerns, or do you use them as useful tools to actually make changes in your life? Or do you create a full-length movie out of them like Friday the 13th with all of the props and all of the special effects? Our mandate is to be here now, to be in this moment. Because in this moment, you're okay. In this moment, you are okay. To be here now and to starve your fear and feed your faith. Ernest Holmes said, I cannot help but believe that the divine mind, which is certainly everywhere present, is free from all fear. I'm going to say that to you again. I cannot help but believe that the divine mind, which is certainly everywhere present, is free from all fear. Can you lean into that? The divine does not contain any fear. Can you lean into that presence that is present in the moment of whatever is happening? Can you lean into the divine presence that knows no fear? Ernest Holmes also said, you are living in an intelligence which instantly knows the answer to any problem. Then you are living in an intelligence which has no problem. You are living in an intelligence which has no problem. Remind yourself of that. Can you say that with me? I'm living in an intelligence that has no problems. I am living in an intelligence which has no problems. Let's say it again. I live in an intelligence that has no problems. Lean into that. Feel that in those stressful moments. And so you've been given a little piece of paper and a pen. So I invite you to take that out. And if you don't have one, to raise your hand and someone will hand you one. Pauline needs one of those. A pen and one of those little papers.
Oh, okay.
And what I want you to do is to write down one thing that you choose to consciously let go of, that you either have been worried about or had fear about. I now consciously choose to let go of my worry or my fear about, and fill in the blank. And so I want you to decide if it's either a worry or a fear. And to say after me, I now lay down this, and fill in the blank, whether it's a worry or a fear. I now lay down this worry. Let's say it again. I now lay down this worry. And to say, I release it into the presence which has no problem. I release it into the presence which has no problem. Let's say it one more time. I release it into the presence which has no problem. And now I invite you to tear it up. And then on the table in front of Ray and the video camera is a box, and I invite you to go and put that worry or fear that you have just let go of, to put that in that box. Now, invitation to you this week is to interrupt your pattern of thought when you notice you're in a low mood. To do something that will shift your thinking. Remember those things you put in your back pocket that you can do? To do one of those things that will shift your thinking. To focus on your own divine expression. To focus on something that feels like a higher purpose in your life. To do something that enables your own spirit to be active in this world. And to be here now. To starve your fear and to feed your faith. And as a result, you will be moving through this world where you aren't thrown around so much by what is happening in the world. You will have more of a sense of control over your own inner experience. And you'll move through life with a greater ability to be centered and to feel grounded. And so we are going to actually end this talk today by doing a chamber of prayer. So invite our practitioners to circle the group here. And so we are each going to pray in our own way for the blessing of that release, of that thing that you released, as well as a prayer for this world. And so, I'm going to wait for the motorcycles for a second. And so we begin. And so I recognize that there is a power that has no problem, because it is an infinite and creative intelligence. It is an intelligence that imbues all things, that expresses itself in and through and around and as everything that is. And it is this thing that I call life. It is the life that we are living, and it is the life that is expressing itself as everything that is. And so I lean into that presence today, recognizing that it is active in and through everything. That it is truly all that there is. It is the life of each and everything. It is the life of each and every person here. It is the guiding force. It is the thing that animates us and that leads us and guides us into a path of greater good. And so today I bless the release of each one of these worries and fears, knowing that that infinite presence has already taken a hold of them, that they are being transmuted right now. For it is God's good pleasure to unfold itself as an abounding good. And so I recognize that that presence is omni-active in this world, that it is present in every country. It is present in every situation. It is present in every concern and every worry and every question, every politician, every government. And it is having its way right now as intelligence and love and truth and oneness and good. And so that is unfolding itself right now as peace, as wholeness, as safety and security and love and belonging and equality. And so I just rest in this truth, knowing that it is unfolding itself everywhere I look and everywhere I do not see, for it is truly the only power that there is. And so I release this into the infinite law in gratitude, and I say, and so it is. And so it is. And so Barbara's going to come forward and lead us in an affirmation now.
And so if you would all join me, I live in infinite intelligence which has no problem. I lean into that. I starve my fear and feed my faith. I live from my spiritual nature, and so it is.
And so it is now time for our offering. So if you brought an offering today, I invite you to come and put it in the basket. And if you did not, but you are supporting us online, I thank you for your continued support of Living Beyond Limits and this ministry. And so I invite you all to join me in a blessing of this offering. And so I bless this offering today. And it is from that infinite presence and the connection with that one today that we have each have given of the good that has poured into our own lives. Recognizing that we live in this law of abundance, a law of good, and that we are participating in that law of circulation, for we receive and we give and we receive and we give. And so today I bless this offering from the fullness of heart, from a place of deep gratitude for living beyond limits, for the spiritual path that we are walking, for the presence of God that is unfolding itself at every single moment. And so I bless this offering, know that it blesses each and every single one of us here today and every person that is to come here in the future, for it is transmuted into the ministry that we are doing here. And so I invite you to join me in blessing this offering, in blessing this community, in blessing this center, and in sending a blessing out into this world, to every home and every person and every heart and every life. And I say, and so it is. And so I have really a couple of invitations. That really one is we are going to have a picnic here after service on September 19th. So we invite you to bring yourself a picnic lunch. Bring something to share if you want to, but you don't have to. Bring games if there are games that you have that you'd like to play, and we can join in playing, board games or playing games like I have bocce ball. We'll bring our bocce ball and just get to spend time together enjoying as we move into the end of summer. So I hope that you will make it that day. Put it on your calendar. And the second one is just that we are still on the lookout for a new home. We've looked at some places this week and have some other calls out, but we haven't made a decision yet. So if you come upon something that you think is a good location, a good space for us, talk to me or to Chris Braunschweiger. Chris, where are you? Raise your hand. To Chris Braunschweiger. That's it for those invitations. So I will hope to see you here next week. And in the meantime, know that you are loved and that we are so grateful that you are a part of this spiritual community and this family. So blessings to all of you.